This client went through, made $16,000 working with us. 3 or 4 months after we'd worked with him, he reached out to me and basically said, Xander, everything you're teaching is immoral. 3 months ago, you were singing our praises because we had just helped you out of a financial hole that you had never been out of in decades of your working career. Literally messaged my wife to be like, how could you marry such an evil person? Like sometimes they will find a way to like make it dig in there with the knife and twist.
Welcome to Coach's Corner with Xander Fryer and Jay Williams, where we dive into what it really takes to launch, build, and scale a successful coaching business, one that brings you more income, more impact, and more freedom than you ever thought possible. After more than a decade in the coaching space, each of us building 7-figure businesses and helping thousands of coaches grow to 6 and 7 figures, we realized we have learned way too much not to share it with the industry. So welcome to Coach's Corner. Hey, Xander.
Hey, Jay.
How you feeling today?
I'm feeling good, man. How about you?
Good. So one of the first questions that I asked you when we started working together on marketing is, what's the worst client you ever had?
Yeah.
Subsequently, we posted that story, and that was one of the best performing videos that we had because everyone can relate to working with bad clients.
Everyone can relate to having a shitty client. Yeah.
I mean, I've had clients that made me want to quit. Like, you get off the call and you're just like, I don't think I want to do this anymore.
Yeah, like, why am I putting myself through this crap? Yeah.
But in the end, a lot of those stories teach us more than our success stories, than our best stories. They make us better coaches. They show us how to spot red flags and show us how to set limits and boundaries. And they give us the experience of the very uncomfortable experience of firing clients.
Yeah.
I always felt like unless you are willing to kind of deal with those kind of clients, you're not going to build a successful business, because this is really the best way to learn.
Well, yeah, like if you're gonna build a coaching business that's gonna change thousands of lives, it's like, well, if you think about it at scale, like you're gonna have a shitty client at some point, and if you're not willing to go through that, well, you're not gonna deserve all the amazing clients that you get to work with that are all having a blast and getting great results. Like if you can't deal with those couple of really tough clients and make it through it.
So I thought we would just dig into this today and have a little bit more.
Yeah,
of an
no, that's not
unstructured
going to be
conversation.
uncomfortable or not fun in any way, shape, or form. Let's just talk about our failures. Yeah, let's go for it.
Perfect. Okay, I'm just going to ask the question: what is the worst client that you've ever had?
Yeah, it's funny because like when you ask that question, there's instantly 2 people that come to mind from my coaching business, and one that stands out more than the rest. Maybe because it was the first really tough situation I've ever had with a client. My worst client that I ever had, when she first started working with us, she was completely broke, in massive amounts of debt, and was actually going through bankruptcy. And it was just an absolute shit show.
So you were like her last chance.
We were the absolute last chance. Like we were the last ditch effort, right? And so we started working with her, obviously, really poured into this situation because I did not want her to fail.
Yeah.
It was actually great in the beginning. And I think this was the tough part. It was really good in the beginning. She turned a corner. Within the first couple of months, she had made like 30 grand. She got to about the 20 or 30K per month mark within about 3 months. And then at about 6 months, she was earning 40, 50K per month. She really turned the corner. She took to the teachings, partially, I think, because it was like, she's got nothing left to lose. She's really got to go after this, right?
Back against the wall.
Against the wall, right? And so she completely paid off her debt. She moved out of her parents' home. Her and her husband moved out of her parents' home, and they were able to bring their daughter into the world in a world of abundance, rather than from a place of scarcity where they were at before.
Wait, this is the worst client you've ever had?
Oh, we'll get there.
You must have just unbelievable success stories.
So what happened was after working with this client for about 9 months, and we had helped her make multiple 6 figures in the business at this point, bought a new Tacoma truck. And what happened was she had found out that before working with us, she had a friend and colleague that worked with us maybe 3 or 4 months prior, and we had charged about 30% less than what she had paid, right? Now, to me, that makes plenty of sense. It's like, okay, well, we were working with them before and we got better at what we were doing, so we increased our prices, right? Yeah. Now, to her, she took this really personally and was basically like, you overcharged me. You were like, this is not fair. And she basically asked for a complete refund on 9 months worth of us working together. I had testimonials filmed with her where she said, we changed her life and everything like that. And all of a sudden, it just completely flipped into a 180. And all of a sudden, we became the enemy. And I didn't know what to do about it. She threatened to slander us all over the internet. She wanted a complete refund, and I just didn't know what to do. This was also probably within the first couple of years of my business. So that was the first time that I really had to face someone that I was like, where is this coming from? I don't know what's happening here, but they were just gunning to take me out for what I could see or what I thought was absolutely no reason. And I think that's what made it so hard.
Yeah. Did something else happen in her life, or was that just
I don't know. And I think here's the thing that I always come back to whenever we have a tough client is you never know what's going on in someone else's life, right? I'm a true believer that hurt people.
Yeah.
And so I know she had been through a lot in the past, right? And I know she had not fully worked through it, right? Emotionally, traumatically, psychosomatically, everything like that. So it could have been something very simple, like, maybe she had a client that asked for a refund from her and she had already spent the money and now she's feeling financially tight. So the only way, if she goes back into that scarcity mode that she was used to before, maybe the quickest and easiest way for her to feel like she can get that money back is just to ask for a refund from me for something that is seemingly meaningless.
Yeah, that's I think that hurt people is really a theme from a lot of the sort of bad clients that
I learned that because, one of my first mentors, we've talked about this, was Jack Canfield. And when I first started, I kind of got to go behind the scenes and work with his business and his company behind the scenes. And Jack's an amazing coach, an amazing entrepreneur, amazing man in general, brilliant man. Nothing but love and purpose exudes from this guy, right? And to see the people that were like unhappy with him and chopping him down, I'm like, where the fuck is this coming from? Like, what kind of pain do you have to be in to think that he's the problem? And it was pretty clear to me that it's like, there's always going to be people out there, especially when you go to change lives. And part of it is like shining a mirror in front of somebody and having them take ownership over their faults and their failures and things like that. Some people, they just can't handle it. And it kind of shifts to like, all right, I'm going to put my walls back up and I'm going to blame everything on you.
Oh man, there's just hearing that story and thinking of the thousands of clients that I've worked with. I've had that story happen multiple times.
Yeah. What's your worst? What's your worst?
Actually, the first one that comes to mind is a slightly different kind of story. The very first business coaching client that I ever had. And I don't know if this is the worst. I've had some pretty bad ones, but it's like it was the most frustrating.
Yeah.
It was like, hey, Jay, like, you're running all these successful businesses. Like, I think you're great. You've helped me in this and that and this way. I have my brother who has a business and really needs some help. So can you help him? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. He's like, great. The guy's like super financially strapped. So I'm going to pay for him to work with you. That right there is actually the first lesson.
I was already like, I can already see what the problem is.
Yeah. And so given that this is my first client and, my approach to coaching is like, I'm going to literally do whatever it takes. Right.
Yeah.
And
you took full ownership over the situation.
100%. And it was just like, okay, cool. The guy had paid for 6 calls and it was like once a week. This is how we were charging back then. It wasn't very much, but whatever. So the guy had paid for 6 calls. It was going to be once a week. And the goal was to get him from, basically on the brink of shutting the business down to, earning a little bit of a profit. It wasn't really like a huge ask.
It was just turn around the business. Yeah.
So I started working with him and it was like very simple. Like, what is your goal? Kind of first, step. And the guy just fought me every step of the way. And, he just didn't do any of the work.
Just wasn't coachable, didn't do the work.
Yeah, didn't do the work, wasn't coachable. finally kind of got an idea of what his goal was and then said, okay, here's some action steps. And he just never did the work. I think I had 18 calls with him.
Yeah. Because you were so invested in getting him there, but he wasn't because he never paid.
Yeah, exactly. And so it was just like, this was my very first client, like my very first business coaching client. I had coached people in fitness before, but this was my very first business coaching client. And I was like, look, I know this works. I've done it myself. I've talked to other people about it for free. Like I just don't get it. Like, what's the deal here? Luckily, I got another client like during the 18 weeks or whatever that I was working with this guy, because if that was my only experience, then I would have,
You probably would have quit. Right?
Yeah, that would have taken my confidence.
I think this is, you're hitting on a really interesting point that I see in the coaching space all the time, which is like certifications that tell coaches like, go work with people for free so that you get great testimonials and you're going to build your confidence. And then you'll go be able to get people who pay you what you're really worth. And I've seen that this probably kills more businesses than any other piece of advice that I've seen online because of exactly what you said. First of all, people who pay attention, and people who don't. Like when you have clients that don't invest, right? They're not going to do the work, and it's going to be like pulling teeth, and you're going to have to literally try and drag them across the line. And I think there's so many coaches that follow that advice, right? And they go try and work with their first one or two clients and they don't get results and they think it's them. Luckily, like you mentioned, luckily you're kind of like, you were already confident enough to like, no, I know this works. There's something else at play here. And you got another client to kind of prove it out.
Yeah.
But it's like most coaches quit because of that exact moment.
Yeah. If your experience of coaching is like you're doing everything you can and your client doesn't do the work and that's the only thing that you have, like how long can you do that before you just give up? That one sticks in my mind because it was my very first one. And looking back, it's like, why did I even think I could do this after that first client?
Yeah.
Right.
But to your point, like I think each one of these clients, when we do have a really tough client like that, it teaches us something that just makes us better as a coach. That one, honestly, when I went through that taught me, it taught me, I actually dug deep. One of our clients was actually the trainer for like all the psychiatrists in the US. And I actually took the situation to him and I was like, can you walk me through what happened here? And he actually taught me about like a psychological principle called splitting that people will do where they can't associate their own results or their own failures with themselves. So they will always split it and put it on someone else. And he said, literally what you're walking through is a psychological principle that this person went through. And so it actually taught me how to spot these situations earlier so that if I can see that happening with someone, I can actually coach them out of it, what's actually going on psychologically there, right? And that was 6 years ago, and like we have not had another situation specifically like that since then.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's it. Like what I learned from that is like not everybody is ready for your help.
Especially if they're not paying for it.
Yeah, it's like, in fact, it's better for you to have to work harder to try to get someone to pay full price that is going to show up and do the work than for you to just work with people for free or like give them this huge discount just so that you can get some experience. It's like, I mean, yes, you get some experience. It's pretty rough experience.
Yeah. And it kills your mindset and it kills your confidence and you don't want to coach anymore.
I've had a lot of clients. I say a lot of clients. That sounds really bad, but I've definitely had clients.
All of my clients.
I've definitely had clients like the one you described where it's like, you can't even explain it, but they just hate you all of a sudden. Like if a client just all of a sudden flips and hates you, like the more vehemently they hate you, the more detached you can become.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, whoa, this is like way more. Yeah. Like where did this come from? And when they start sending you, 7-paragraph emails or texts, you're like, got it. Okay. So there's something else going on here.
There's something else going on here, and it actually has nothing to do with me. I just happened to say something, or you went through a piece of my content that triggered it for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the number 2 that happened to me was another client of ours, came to us again in very dire financial situations, was kind of living in a studio apartment, not making more than like $2,000 a month. and we helped him get his coaching business up and running. And literally in the first couple of months of working with him, I think he made 16 grand or something. He made more than in the last half year combined. He made in 2 months, right? And so really turned him around there. He kind of figured he had gotten everything he needed. He stopped working with us, right? And to your point, I think this is what happens occasionally is like you can make a lot of like mental progress and transformation in a short period of time, but if you don't keep consistent with it, you can go, it's like a spring. You can go right back to where you were.
Yeah.
And when he first started working with us, he had a lot of beliefs around the coaching space where, it's like, well, if you're charging for coaching, that's immoral. Right. And it's like, I just don't believe that. Right. Because I've never met a coach who does not charge and is able to impact a lot of people. Right. Yeah. It doesn't work that way. Like, I don't know if I told you this, Jay, but for one of our events, we went to hire the Dalai Lama to speak at one of our events. This was many years ago before we started working together. Do you know how much the Dalai Lama costs?
Oh gosh. It's got to be in the tens of thousands of dollars.
He was going to give us a 50% discount because it was for a good cause. It was 70 grand for a keynote.
Wow.
So like, for everybody out there that thinks they're being a saint because they're not charging, right? The Dalai Lama regularly charges $140,000 for a keynote. Now, obviously, he's not taking that money and spending it on Lamborghinis. It's going to good causes. It's helping him spread the message. It's creating community for his following and all of that sort of stuff. But you do the same thing as a coach. And I think it's so funny to me because like for him, it was like this deep-seated belief that like if you're charging as a coach, it's immoral. You should be putting it out for free, right? And I go back, I'm a big believer in Eastern philosophy. If you go back in Eastern philosophy, Vedic principles, your guru, your meditation teacher would charge 1 month's salary to teach you meditation. And so like, okay, you look at the average person today, well, what is 1 month's salary? On the lower end, that's $3,000 to $5,000. On the higher end, that's $10,000 to $20,000.
That's a lot.
This is exactly my point. In Vedic philosophy, you're supposed to charge high ticket. Do you know why they taught this? So that the people they were teaching the meditation practices and the spiritual practices were committed. So they would actually do the work like we were just talking about. And there's this weird belief now that like if we're charging for our teachings and our education and our coaching, we're terrible people. So anyways, let me get back to the story. So this client went through, made $16,000 working with us in 2 months, but he stopped working with us thinking that he had learned everything. And obviously he had learned the tactics, he had learned the strategies, but as soon as he stopped having the support, like mentally and emotionally, he went back to his old beliefs of charging is immoral. And what happened was about 3 or 4 months after we'd worked with him, he reached out to me and basically said, Xander, everything you're teaching is immoral. I can't believe you're spreading this message that you need to charge for what you're doing. And like, I was like, 3 months ago, you were singing our praises, because we had just helped you out of a financial hole that you had never been out of in decades of your working career. But as soon as he stopped doing the work, it was like a rubber band. He just snapped back to his old reality and his old beliefs and his old comfort zone. And he literally threatened to like slander us all over social media because we're immoral and, go on everywhere and say that everything that we're doing is like, greedy and all this stuff. I had to hop on Zoom calls with him to like calm him down and hear him out, like what's going on, and try and walk him through it. And he would be very calm on the calls and, oh yeah, you're right. And then as soon as he'd get off, he'd send a 3-page email about how we're terrible people and we're all going to hell. And I'm just like, man, like what is going on here?
Yeah. Oh, man. One of the big things here, again, just hearing that story is like, if you're going to put yourself out there and try to help as many people as you can, this is just inevitable.
You're gonna have clients like this, right? And I think that's kind of why I wanted to do this episode with you, is because like, I think it's the harsh reality is like, you have to be prepared to handle some people judging you and some people criticizing you, and build your own self-worth and confidence to know that like what they're saying is coming from a place of their own hurt. They're just projecting onto you. It has, if you're intentionally trying to help people, you can't take it personally when someone says you're a terrible person.
I think this is really why we talked about this a few episodes ago. This is really why it's important to define your mission and like what you're doing and why you're doing it, because there's going to be people that try to knock you off your mission. They tell you that, you're the devil and that, you shouldn't be doing all the things that you're doing and you're hurting people.
Yeah.
And that and the more powerful your mission is, the more you start to change people, the stronger those messages get. It's almost like these are the demons that you have to, slay, the dragons you have to slay to achieve your mission.
To get there. Like, you're going to have to go through this stuff. And I think that's a really good point. We had a client once who had built a $20 to $30,000 a month coaching business. And he'd been in business for like 7 or 8 years and was wondering why he could never get to the $1 million mark. Right. And when we came into the business, we actually saw that it was kind of this mindset that was preventing him from growing. He so deeply emotionally attached to the fact that on his like Google ratings or whatever, it was nothing but 5-star reviews.
Yeah.
It was like 50 or 60, just all 5-star reviews. Right. And he was like, we have nothing but 5-star reviews. And I was like, so does that mean, like, do you ever feel like you take a client that challenges you and pushes you to grow and get to the next level? And he's like, I work with people that I know 100% we can get the result. So I said, you're never growing as a coach then. You're never expanding yourself. And he's like, holy shit, you might be right. And he's like, he subconsciously realized that like he held himself down and was literally turning people away that he probably could have helped for years simply because he wasn't 110% certain that he could get them there, because he was afraid of trying to get them there and not succeeding and getting a 4-star review. And what happened when we helped him see this, right, over the next year, he was like, okay, like I'm going to go challenge myself. I'm going to go take more clients that, like, even if I'm only 90% sure or 80% sure, like no one else is helping them. I need to get out of my own way and at least go try. Right. And so what happened is over that next year, he actually built up to $100,000 a month coaching business, a 7-figure coaching business. He also got his first 4-star review. But at the same time, he had helped hundreds of people at this point that he would have not helped before, because he would have turned them down out of fear of not being perfect. I think so many of us as coaches have this fear of not being perfect. And the truth is, like, your potential clients don't need someone to be perfect. They just need someone.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's better be imperfect and be willing to take, one shitty client out of 100 or 200 to, verbally abuse you, but go help 199. Like, I'll take that any day of the week.
100% agree. Like, there is that trade-off and you have to be willing to make it. Right? You have to be willing to get those 5-star reviews, 1-star reviews. Some of the most, the 4-star reviews, 1-star reviews.
I'll take all the 5-star reviews. Thanks, Jay.
Yeah. Some of the most successful people that I know, if you look at their ratings online, it's not amazing. Right? It's like, they could be good, but they're not perfect. And in fact, like if you forget about the ratings, just look at the news articles for some of the most successful businesses that you've seen. It's just like, there's always someone that's going to talk about.
There's always someone trying to rip you down. There's always someone trying to cut your knees out from under you, especially like the more transformation you're shooting for, the more change you're shooting for, right? The more opposition you're going to have.
And there are people out there that make it their job to try to tear you down.
I had this conversation with our team the other day. And one of the things that I pointed out was I have never had someone who is quote unquote above me try and bring me down.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen. I never find people who are happier than me or more successful than me or have, amazing, it's not just like wealth, right? It's all encompassing true success. They're aligned, they're purposeful, they have amazing families and marriages and they're high integrity people. I have never had someone that I look up to tear me down. It's always from people that are like living a lower level life. I think there's like an Albert Einstein saying, it's like something about shallow minds can never understand the ocean of like your expansion or something, right? So it's like, but like basically like when you have really shallow people, they just try and bring you back down to their level.
Yeah. So it is a funny thing. And I think what you're just doing there is the same thing that I do. It's like somebody has some horrible thing to say and you're just like, yeah, they have problems, right? Moving on, right? But the ones that I find are the hardest to deal with are the ones that, you've kind of like the one you described, it's like you put a ton of work in and you feel like there's this like good relationship, and all of a sudden something flips and you never know what it is, and like all of a sudden you're the worst thing in the world. What's really hard for me, and this is a question I have for you, have you ever had a client that made you wonder if you were the problem?
Every time.
Yeah.
See, I think that's the way that it should be, though, right? So the way you mention it, it's like, yeah, they have an issue. It's like, well, yeah, of course they have an issue. That's why this is the way that it is. But that doesn't mean that we as a coach can't take ownership as well. Every one of these clients that I have had an issue with, it's like, I'm not taking it personally because I know there's something coming up for them. But at the same time, I am going to take ownership over it and go, okay, I couldn't help Tina. How can I make sure that I can help the next Tina? How can I actually get better so that the next time I get a Tina, I can fix this issue, or the next time I get a Tom, I can handle that person, because that is my goal. My goal is to be able to help everyone, and I couldn't do it this time. And I'm not going to take it personally because I did my absolute best for the experience level and the knowledge and understanding and skill set that I have at the time. But I'm also not going to blame that person, right? Because there's a lot of people that are in that situation of victimhood and blaming and complaining. And it's like, I still want to go help that person. So how next time can I help that person out of that situation and get them to fully transform? So every single time it happens, I actually take it deeply personally to the point where it's like, how can I get better? But I'm not taking it personally in terms of like, I'm not good enough. I don't know if that makes, it's like the way that I look at it, it's like, you're not good enough yet, but that doesn't mean you're not worthy, if that makes sense. Yeah, I need to get better so that I can handle that person, but that doesn't mean that I'm a terrible person. I am absolutely worthy and I am a great person, and I'm just going to work on my skill set so the next time I have that Tina or that Tom, I can handle them.
Yeah. The way I have always thought about this is like, okay, so someone sends you a 7-paragraph email. It's always 7 paragraphs or longer, right? And instantly, like when I get something like that, I instantly like, I'm not going to read this right now, right? Because it's just like, I know where this is going. So what I would do is when I'm in the right state of mind, I would go through that. And, you know, part of the issue is when a client leaves, if it's like, if everything was fine, you don't always get amazing feedback on how you can improve, right? But when you have a bad client that writes you a 7-paragraph email, you get a lot of feedback.
You get all the feedback.
You get all of your,
and they make sure to find ways to make it personal.
Yes, exactly. So what I would end up doing is reading through.
One thing that just came up, the second client that I was talking about literally messaged my wife to be like, how could you marry such an evil person? Like sometimes they will find a way to like make it dig in there with the knife and twist.
Yeah. Side note, I think part of why this is hard for me, I can't imagine sending a note like that to anyone.
Ever.
It's just like you're intentionally trying to hurt somebody. And that's what makes it hurt. And I think that's part of why people do it, is because I don't think most people would send a note like that, right? Yeah. But some would, and it's a way to sort of feel like they have power and control.
And it's also most of the reason why they're stuck where they're at is because they're coming from that place of wanting to control and power.
So you take this 7-paragraph email.
Yeah.
And basically like what I would do is I would read through the whole thing and just try to pick out the points that are actually like, why does this light me up so much?
Yeah. Right. Why did this strike a chord? Yeah.
If something really lights me up, then there's probably some sore spot there that I haven't addressed. It's just like a funny thing. Like, you know, if I said, you know, hey, Xander, like your blue hair sucks, you're going to be like, it's not blue, bro. Blue hair. So, yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so people will say things that is kind of like, this isn't even true, right? So just let that go, right? You know, but if they say something about like, you know, whatever, like your nose is too big, like people say my nose is too big. Well, people don't say that, but you know, if you have a level of self-consciousness around it, yeah, it'll get you going. Yeah, it's like, oh man, you know, I've always been worried about, and it's like, why does that light me up? Right. And so I would kind of highlight those little areas. And like, if there's something that I could do to improve it, then I would improve it. If not, it's just like, hey, I can't do anything. I mean, I can do something about my nose, but I'm probably not going to. So,
I'm glad you're not, Jay. I think your nose is just great.
but you get what I'm saying. Is just like,
Yeah, 100%. That's what makes you a good coach as well, is like, yeah, we can feel triggered by this, but then have the consciousness and awareness to understand, okay, there's a reason that I'm being triggered by this. Yes, this person is being irrational.
yeah.
So like, yeah, that's happening. And we're going to kind of disconnect from this a little bit. But it's like, if this is triggering me, there's clearly something there that I am already aware of that I need to work on.
And it's like, now's the time to address that, because I can suppress it and then it will come up again in all these little ways. And the next client will push it. It's just like,
exactly.
Okay, cool.
So let's dig in and deal with that thing.
In terms of clients, I want to do a couple of questions here, because we're talking about sort of our worst clients. So what's worse? A client who fights everything you say, or one who agrees but never does anything?
That's a really good question. Well, it's funny because those are actually, like, when we work with someone, those are the two things that we try and weed out for. Literally, those are, well, there's three things that we weed out for. So when someone works with us, we actually interview our clients, because we need to make sure that like our coaching and stuff will work for them. The first thing that we ask them is, can you be a decisive action taker? Like, you can't get results without taking action. Now, we can hold people's hands, we can give them accountability, but they need to make the decision to become a decisive action taker, even if they haven't been in the past. The second question that we ask is, are you willing to be coachable? Right?
Yep.
Because you can't read the label from inside the bottle, you can't see your own blind spots, and we're going to tell you shit you don't want to hear. And oftentimes, the shit you don't want to hear is the shit that you need the most. So you have to be open to the feedback that is painful, and you have to be willing to take it. The third question we ask people is like, are you doing it for the right reasons? Because we don't want to just help people make money just to make money. We want to help people make money while serving humanity, growing consciousness, things like that. But if you look at those first two, they're literally the two opposite ends of the spectrum that you just mentioned. One person is saying yes to everything, but they're not taking action. And then the other person, you know, they might be an action taker, but they're going to fight you on everything, right? So they're not being coachable. And the reality is, I think both of them are equally as terrible as clients.
Yeah.
which is why we do our best to either make sure that up front we set that expectation, like, hey, you're going to need to commit to these things. And then as soon as we notice someone not doing it, we'll point it out. We'll say, hey, when you signed on with us, you agreed to be coachable. And this moment, and this moment when I gave you this feedback, you're not being coachable. So what's going on? What do we need to do to shift this? And if we can't shift this, then we're not going to be a good fit together. Same thing with the action taking. Hey, you know, we agreed that you were going to be an action taker, right? These are the actions we gave for you to take, and you haven't taken them. First, we try and find out why, what's holding you back. Maybe it's a mental barrier. Maybe it's a somatic or subconscious barrier. Or maybe they have a good logical barrier. They're just not telling us. But if repeatedly, like you mentioned, they just keep saying yes and they're not taking the actions, we'll bring it up to them and say, hey, if this doesn't change, we're not a good fit together.
Did you always have those three criteria? Or was that from like working with clients and going, no, this doesn't work, you know?
You know, it's funny because I have always had those three criteria, but it just kind of seemed like the natural three that I wanted. And the more that we went through it, it's just like, it just kind of reiterated how important those three are. So yeah, I actually have always had those three criteria. I always knew that, you know, people needed to be willing to get out of their comfort zone and take action. I always knew that they needed to be open to the coaching, because otherwise I can't coach them. Right.
Yeah.
And then the third one is more of a personal preference. It's like, I don't want to help people just to make money. Like, I want to help people expand consciousness and serve humanity and stuff. So that one's more of just like I don't want to help you if you just want to make $1 million. So
Yeah. Right. So which one's worse?
I still think they're equally as shitty. Sorry. I honestly could not. It's like two halves of the same shitty coin, if you ask me. Like, let's just throw away the fucking coin. I don't want it anymore.
Yeah, I guess I would rather have somebody that at least engages and fights than does nothing. But you're right. Both of them are not great. And it actually kind of leads me to the next question. I mean, one of the things that I learned working with not ideal clients is that I needed some sort of filter at the beginning so that I could kind of weed out the clients that weren't right for me. Yeah. Right. And that doesn't mean they're bad people. It's just they're not right for me and my coaching business.
Yeah. Well, I think especially as a coach, you have to be hyper aware of your energy, right? Because you are the product, right? So, you know, that whole idea of like if you let one bad apple into the bunch, like it can affect all the apples, or it can affect you as the apple eater, I guess. I don't know. I don't know how that saying goes, but like, I think that's kind of part of it, is like, you have to be so hyper aware of how you spend your energy. And like one, like, client that is really toxic can prevent you from helping 10 or 20 other people.
Yeah. And I think once you work with enough people, you realize that it's just like, oh yeah, I put all of my energy into this person. And then I've got these 3 or 4 other people that are like easy and they're just doing the work. Like, let's just not work with that person. Yeah. So one of the things that I did once I realized,
by the way, I have had clients that we have fired before reach out maybe 6 months afterwards and be like, you firing me was actually the best thing for me.
Yeah.
Because it forced me to take an honest look at how could someone that I paid a bunch of money fire me? How did that happen? Like, what kind of person would I have to be for someone to literally fire me for that situation? It really forced someone to like take a look at like the changes they honestly needed to make.
Yeah. Yeah. So what I ended up doing was, in my sales calls, in my enrollment calls, I just added a decision point.
Like for yourself or for them?
For myself.
Yeah.
I would have my script and I would, ask them a bunch of questions and then, kind of figure out, like, dig into their pain and then figure out the heaven. And then before I talk to them about what we do, I just had a line in the script that basically says, do you want to work with this person?
Yeah.
And this is just
completely subjective. Like, do you actually want to work with this person?
If the answer was yes, then I would proceed with the rest. If the answer was no, then I would say, you know what? And this is for my my fitness business. Is like, hey, I think you'd be a great fit for, Planet Fitness or whatever, Orange Theory or whatever.
Yeah, send them somewhere else. Yeah.
And it's just like, then I kind of gave them something else that they could do. And I would do that maybe 1 out of every like 10 or 20 times. It wasn't often, but just having that sort of release valve, it was kind of like
having that capability of being like, this is not in alignment with me.
Yeah. Because when you said this, and I don't think coaches realize this, like, you are the product. In some ways that's scary. It's just like, well, then I got to be really good. But on the other side, it's like, no, actually, yeah, they're paying me, but also they get me.
Yeah.
And if I don't want to, if I, like that first client that I had,
there is limited me.
Yeah, exactly. If I don't want to work with them, if I'm like dreading getting on the calls with them, then I'm not going to be a very good coach for anyone. Having that sort of release valve was really a big thing. Is there anything that you've go ahead?
I was gonna say, I really like that, because I had a mentor once, Bedros Keuilian, amazing guy. And one of my favorite things he told me, he's like, yeah, if there's someone I really don't want to work with, I just charge him I don't want to work with you tax. That's like double the price. And I'm like, I thought that was a hilarious idea, but I actually just like the idea of being able to say no more. If I'm even charging double for someone that I really don't want to work with, well, then I'm still putting a price on me, right? I'm selling out my energy and my alignment and my time. And that's not what I want to do. Like, the money isn't worth it for me unless I'm doing it with people that I want to do it with and the way that I want to do it.
This is part of when we talk about like high ticket, is this, you gotta be worth it. Like, you have to see yourself as worth it. There's this great story, you've probably heard of it, of Steve Jobs hired a designer to create some logo. Have you heard this story?
No.
I think it was a logo, but he hired a designer to create a logo. And before he hired him, he was like, okay, so, this is Steve Jobs. He's like the super design guy as well, right? And he's like, okay, so I need you to create a logo, and, I want you to create a bunch of different versions of it, and I want it in this color and that color. And the guy goes, no, you'll pay me $275,000, which was a ridiculous amount of money back then, and I will give you one logo in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And Steve Jobs like, what? This is ridiculous. Whatever. And he's like, okay, cool. Like, if you don't want it, that's fine. And, the guy went away, and Steve Jobs just rants and raves, and he's, does whatever he does. And then he eventually goes back to the guy, because he's like, yeah, like, no one ever holds the line like that with me. No, like, this guy must be worth it.
Yeah.
Right. And he pays him, and he gets this amazing logo, and he had nothing but praise for the guy, because it was just like, this guy, he said he was going to do something. He, charged the money, and he did it, and he didn't kind of succumb to all of my stuff.
Yeah.
I think that's true for clients as well. It's just like, if you can just hold the line and say, look, I'll get you the result. You're going to do it the way I ask you to do it. And it's going to cost you this much. And if you don't want it, that's okay.
Yeah, I think that's the part though. That's okay. And that's the part I think for a lot of starting coaches, that's where they kind of fall off because they're so in fear and scarcity mode. They're just like, I got to take on anybody. I got to do anything. And you will find, I still remember the first time I told someone no. And I was like, I was still in debt. I was still not making the money that I needed to like pay off my credit cards and things like that. But it was one of the most empowering things I ever did in my business to just be like, this is not a good fit. Because being able to say no and set that boundary opened up space for so much more.
Yeah. So, clients have ups and downs. How do you know if a client is just having like a bad week or a bad day versus like they're just a bad client for you?
Maybe you're different than I am. I think you have a stronger frame. I think you're better at that. I'm a total people pleaser, and I always see the highest potential in people, even if it's like not possible for them to attain it. To your point, I might see so much more potential in them that I am going to keep going through crap and trying to figure it out and get there for probably too long before I realize, hey, this really isn't working. But for me, you try everything that you can, right? Because in the end, this person wants to change. Like there's a reason that they signed up with you. They want to change. Right. And so I kind of, to your point, I do really take ownership over like, okay, what is something I've never tried before? What is something that's different? Because like, if I can figure out how to get through with this person, then again, I can get through to that next Tina or that next Tom or something like that. So, for me, I will probably keep working at it too long before I realize like, hey, this is just not working, or they've given up, or they've gone the other direction. But normally there's a point. Normally there's a point where it's like it's pretty clear. And I think being able to just be like, okay, like, this relationship is separating, and being okay with that, I think is important. But I probably try and keep after it for too long, just for my own personal growth's sake.
I mean, I'm similar. This is why I have the filters at the beginning. It's just like, because I know once you're in, it's like, I'm going to do whatever it takes.
But I think to that point, at this point in business, it's like, we don't get a lot of those people anymore. I couldn't tell you the last time we had one of those, because it's like, what happens is you learn from it and you address those things sooner on. I think that's kind of what it comes down to, is like most coaches are afraid to have those difficult conversations earlier on in the relationship. So it's like, you don't really get to that point much when you like, as soon as you see something come up, you go, hey, this is happening. Let's talk about it now before it becomes an issue. And in general, it resolves because you're addressing it as soon as it comes up. One of our clients recently said like the best thing as a coach is to be louder sooner. Right. So like talk about whatever's coming up or whatever's showing up sooner and be loud about it. Right. Like, get it out there so that you can figure out how to solve that issue, that conflict, that separation sooner. And if you can do that, you just don't get these problems anymore.
Okay. It takes you a long time, but have you ever fired a client? What is the criteria you use to fire them?
Same ones that we just said. It's literally the exact same ones we just said. Number one, they've either stopped being decisive action takers. So they're taking actions out of fear rather than courage. Because to build your business, you have to take courageous action. You have to take intentional action. If we're telling you the things that you need to do and you're just not doing them, and it's obviously, we know there's mindset blocks and subconscious blocks, but we have all the tools to help people through that, right? But if they're not taking ownership to actually use the tools and execute and do the things that they need to, right, despite the coaching and moving them through stuff, that's a problem. And so normally the next question is, are they being coachable, right? Because if they're not taking action, but they're coachable, you can coach them up on becoming an action taker and moving through the stuff. So really they have to meet both. They have to be not taking decisive and courageous action and not be coachable. Because if they're not coachable, then you can't fix them. You can't turn it around, right? But as soon as it becomes clear that they're not taking action and they're not coachable, that's where we fire someone.
Yeah, I've had a few of these incidents, and it's generally the same thing. It's just like, yeah, you're not doing it, and you're not willing to talk about it.
Same exact thing.
Yeah, you're kind of missing meetings. You're not doing the thing. And
like if most people, if they're not doing something, they in general have a very valid reason why. But if they're not willing to open up and be coachable around it, sometimes it's a very personal thing. Sometimes it's a subconscious trauma that they had when they were kids. Sometimes it's a relationship issue that's going on that they don't want to talk about. And it's like, that's fine. But if we talk about it, we can work through it. We can adjust, we can shift, we can change, we can figure out how to support you. But if you won't talk about it, can't help.
Yeah, that's so good. I'm glad you brought that up. One of the things, I was coaching fitness. That's not really what you're doing.
Yeah,
it's like you're coaching these things, but ultimately, what you're trying to do is surface the things that block them in every area.
100%. Yeah, the way you're going to get results in fitness is the same way you're going to get results in business. It's by getting the other subconscious blocks to the surface and then dealing with them.
And I think sometimes when people sign up for stuff, they're not signing up for that. I signed up to lose 15 pounds. I didn't sign up to, talk about how I deal with
my
trauma.
Relationship with my mom when I was 5 years old. And
yeah, exactly. It's just like, if you aren't willing to address that stuff, then really you're just providing a service. You're not really coaching, right? But I have had to fire clients after, you try all the things and it just doesn't get there. And what I end up doing is basically write down all of the things that I'm going to say. I cut it down to remove all of the emotion, and then I give it a day or two, and then I have the conversation with them. Because ultimately it's like, you as a coach want to help everybody that stands in front of you.
Yeah.
Right? And for you to actually let somebody go takes a tremendous amount of effort, probably more than
tremendous amount of courage, I think, too.
Yeah. No, this is good. So, I would say in conclusion here, you're going to, if you want to make an impact, you're going to have some bad clients.
I don't want everybody to think, it's just like, it's all shitty clients and it all sucks, right? But, in 8 years and thousands of clients we've worked with, I can count those really tough clients on one hand. I think it was literally just 2, maybe 3, but they stick with you because they're really tough situations to move through. And if you want to have an impact and a change, you're gonna have those people.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's actually even just going through these stories, like, oh yeah, I learned that and I learned that. It's a great way for you to learn how to help the people that are not the worst clients.
I look back and I'm like, oh, would I have, what would I give to have never worked with that person? I'm like, no, actually, I'm good that happened, because there was a lot of growth that came from it.
And, without kind of overreacting as well, you're not going to create a million policies because of one bad client. Yeah. But it's just like, just having that in the background, it's like, oh, okay, let me be aware of this and let me filter out for it in the future. So,
yeah.
Well, if somebody wants to work with you, Xander,
and they promise not to be that nightmare client.
Yeah. If the non-nightmare client out there wants to work with you, how would they do that?
You guys just go ahead and go to the link below and you can apply to work with us at the link below. Check us out at www.xanderfryer.com. You can read case studies, testimonial stories. Obviously, we are the best in the world at what we do at helping coaches build businesses. So can't wait to help you.
Excellent, Xander. Thank you for your time, and we'll see you in the next one.
Thanks.